The following is a paid presentation by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys, paid for by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys. The Siniard Law Show, answering your legal questions, featuring attorneys Tommy Siniard, Bart Siniard, and your host, Aaron Dacey. This is the Siniard Law Show.
Hello and welcome to the Siniard Law Show, where we invite your legal questions and educate you on various areas of the law. Siniard Law is a father-son personal injury firm right here in the Tennessee Valley, focused on giving back to the community through legal education. Siniard Law has again received recognition as a Tier 1 personal injury litigation firm by Best Lawyers in America. Tonight we're discussing premises liability. Bart Siniard is joined by another attorney in their firm, Barnes Hayward. And good evening, gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for always giving us such great information and really educating us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. We've got an interesting topic. Most people don't think about premises liability until they find out they're in a premises liability case. Yeah. So it's a good thing for people to be aware of before something happens.
What is just a simple definition of premises liability?
I mean, the simple definition is just that it's an injury that occurs on someone's property, or the liability aspect would be what, as a business owner or a property owner in general, what liability do you have? What duty do you have to people who visit your property or your business? We
have some really interesting questions on this topic. Can't wait to get to this. So if you have questions on this topic or any other legal topic, just email us at questions@siniardlaw.com or call us at 844-7000-LAW. Your question may be featured. Now to our legal tip of the week. What do you do if you get hurt in a store?
Ooh, that's a long answer. I'll try to keep it short. So if you get hurt in a store and like it's a bad injury and you feel like you need to make a claim to cover, medical costs or loss of income or whatever it may be, there's a few things you need to do immediately. And I know it's very hard to do these things immediately because you may be in severe pain. A lot of times when people get injured in a store, they're embarrassed and they try to get out of there.
Yeah.
But ideally, as a lawyer, what we like to have to help this person is an incident report. Typically, in most major, national chain type stores, an incident report's always done. That's their protocol. You want to identify any witnesses that may be there, other shoppers or whatever it may be. At least get their phone number or some type of contact information. You want to get medical treatment immediately if you think you have any injury, because if you wait days and days and days, they'll try to discount your claim. And then you probably need to talk with a lawyer. If you have like a severe injury, like a fracture, or you need a surgery of any sort, you're probably going to need a lawyer to get fair compensation because a lot of these claims against stores are denied. We'll get into that a little bit later. But you probably need a lawyer if you're needing to make a claim.
And the video too,
yeah,
right?
Well, that's the primary reason you want to get to a lawyer as quickly as possible, is so we can send out a letter to the business asking them to preserve the video. The other thing that I would add, and again, you're probably not thinking about this, but sometimes the video, depending on the quality or the angle, doesn't show the full picture of what happened.
Yeah.
Take pictures if you can. If you're there with your friend, your husband, your wife, have them take a picture.
Right, so you can be the smart witness, right? If you're injured, then hopefully somebody with you will help
nobody's
out.
Really thinking about collecting evidence when they're hurt. They're in pain.
Unless they're an attorney like y'all.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking.
I'd probably forget. I'm a weenie.
Well, we appreciate you, letting us know and educating us so that, I remember what Bart and Barnes said. We should do this. Yeah. So let's get to our viewer questions. This first question tonight is an email from Tanya. She says, I had a question about something that happened while I was shopping, so on the same vein, and wanted to see what I should do. I was in a store when a shelf collapsed and some items fell on me. Some stuff hit my face and left me bruised, and a few cans fell on my foot and caused a pretty big knot. I didn't go to the ER that day, but I did go to urgent care the next day to get checked out. I'm mainly trying to figure out if I'm responsible for the medical bills or if the store should cover them. Also, do I need to contact the store? Any advice would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a winnable claim to me. As long as she wasn't doing anything that she shouldn't have been doing. I've had people call and tell me this story, but then it turns out they were actually like climbing up on a shelf or moving cans around and knocked something down. But if it happened just like this and the shelf just randomly collapsed, that indicates to me there's something wrong with the shelving or something that was done wrong in regards to improperly stacking items, like going over a weight limit, or the stacking was done in a staggered fashion that was dangerous. So, I think she has a claim, and if she wants to pursue it, she can try to handle it on her own. I usually don't recommend that. If she wanted to handle it on her own, you got to contact the store and make sure a claim's opened up. You want to make sure you have all the evidence, like we just talked about a few minutes ago. Do you have photos? Is there video? If so, can you preserve it? You got to get your medical records and your medical bills from the urgent care and present a claim to them and say, this is why y'all are responsible and here's what I want. I always encourage people too. It sounds like she thinks she's just bruised, but maybe get a little further follow-up care. Nothing against urgent cares, they're great. But if you're still having lingering pain or stiffness in a foot, or ankle, or whatever it may be, you may want to get to an orthopedic doctor to really be fully diagnosed, because I've had people think they're just bruised and they settled their case.
Yeah.
And then it turns out what they thought was a shoulder strain is really a torn rotator cuff. I've had that happen like 10 times.
And we only get one bite at the apple.
Yeah.
Once you settle a claim, it's going to be done in exchange for a document that you're asked to sign called a release that just says in exchange for that money, you're basically giving up any further rights to come back for future medical treatment if something else comes back. So, what I tell people is just for peace of mind, if for no other reason than to eliminate the possibility of something more serious going on, I would like to know that. And so it may make sense to go see an orthopedic or have some imaging done just to confirm I don't have anything to worry about, and now it's safe for me to move forward with settling my claim. The other thing that I would say to her, and Bart's right, it does seem like a winnable claim. But most businesses carry medical payments coverage. Yeah. And that's no fault coverage. It's there for any reason that somebody is hurt on their property, regardless of whether they're responsible or whether the person that was injured is responsible. And if a claim gets denied, you say, I don't want to go hire a lawyer, or you want to handle it on your own and you just want your medical bills paid, sometimes they'll offer that, and you should certainly ask about it if the claim is denied.
What is it called again?
Medical payments coverage.
Okay, very good. All right, let's get to a voicemail from Terry. He says, I was injured on April 4th, 2026 while inside a retail establishment when I tripped on a dustpan handle that was sticking out into the aisle. As a result, I suffered torn ligaments in my knee. I go to the store every day, and I know the clerk that was working that day. I'd like to know if I have a claim, and I'd also like to know if the clerk is going to suffer repercussions if I make the claim. That's interesting.
So, it's kind of a tough call based on these facts. Alabama has what's called the open and obvious defense. So if you slip on something or trip on something that is obvious, and what is and isn't obvious is debatable. There's no black and white on that issue. But if the law says this, if a reasonable customer in your position could have or should have seen what caused them to trip, then you're supposed to lose. And that's a tough piece of law in Alabama, but the law is based on the fact that store owners shouldn't be held liable for things that a customer should be able to see. Yeah. Even if they're maybe dangerous, if you should be able to see it, it's on you if you don't. So with his situation where, it's sticking out maybe just a few inches, I think it's debatable. You could try. I don't know how that would come down. In my mind, it's a close call. I mean, I'd be willing to look at it. If they deny it, depending on the venue it's in, I may just tell the person, hey, see if they have medical payments coverage, see if you can get your medical costs covered, because you could lose that case in front of a judge or a jury. if it's
because you have some liability because you should have seen
it's similar
it.
to like contributory negligence.
Right.
If you contribute, if it was obvious and you didn't go around it,
Yeah, and
you may come away with a goose egg.
No doubt. And I can tell you that there are people who are almost guaranteed to be sitting on a jury. Jurors are always the perfect plaintiff. In other words, they're going to listen to what the plaintiff has to say, and they're going to think about how they would have done everything better or differently than the plaintiff would have done. And so, you know, we have to have unanimity. If we go try a case, we have 12 people in the box, and they all have to agree to a person, 12-0, that my client is entitled to recover for their damages. And if you have that one person who looks at it and says, I would have seen it, then you're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
So that's why these cases are close calls.
Really interesting. When the Siniard Law Show returns, you might be surprised how many people in our community cannot put food on the table. How you can help Manna House coming up.
Harrison Brothers brings together the best of North Alabama. Our curated selection of local art, fine crafts, and gourmet food are great gifts for everyone on your shopping list. We carry books by local authors, and our toys pique a child's imagination. At Harrison Brothers, your purchases support artists and artisans right here in the Tennessee Valley. Located on Huntsville's Courthouse Square since 1897, Harrison Brothers is more than a store. It's a tradition.
Manna House has been doing amazing things in our community to help those who need a hand. Bart Siniard is with a representative from Manna House to tell us how we can help.
I'm here tonight with Fran Fluhler, the founder of Manna House, a fantastic organization based in Huntsville. If you've lived in this area over the last quarter century, you've probably heard the name Manna House. So happy to have her on. Fran, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me this evening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really respect you and your organization and what you've done for people who need assistance in this community the last 20 plus years. But I wanted to ask you a few questions about it, and I'm curious. Tell us how and why you started Manna House.
Well, I always like to say, well, God did it, because it's really true.
Yeah.
I just got a call from a friend who had been laid off at Avex. There were 1,500 people laid off in one day.
Really?
And she could pay everything, all her bills, but she didn't have groceries. So she said, can you go with me? And I went out to this crazy place in Limestone County, and this gentleman walked up to me and said, Sugar, I don't know who you are, but you got the call of God all over your life. And I was thinking, did he just tell me I'm a large woman, or what did he say? And so he told me to come back and see him. And he said, I have all these people driving from Madison County to get food. I just need places in Huntsville, Madison, that would give out food.
Yeah.
And I'll give you the food. I thought, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I wasn't really planning to be into a ministry or anything like that. And it just started slowly. So we did it for 12 and a half years out of our front porch.
Really?
Until one of our neighbors said, you need to get a building.
Yeah.
And so here we are 20 years later, we're in Huntsville and doing a lot more than what we were doing on my front porch.
Yeah, I know y'all are doing a lot of good work.
It's great. You know, I love that. I have this sign on my desk that says, my answer is yes, Lord, before you ask it. So that was my yes. And so was I trained in that? No.
No, but it's all just kind of worked out, I guess.
It is.
For those people who don't know what Manna House is, tell us what the organization is and what y'all do for the community.
Okay. Well, we are basically whatever somebody might need a plus up or to level up and to keep their standard of living going. So that might be food, or it might be diapers or wipes, or maybe they need books or school supplies for their kids, or maybe they just need clothing because they're going through chemo, so they've lost weight and they got to go back to work. So it looks different for different people, but our focus started out just as food. We just want to give fresh fruits and vegetables. We don't do a lot of canned goods, don't do a lot of dried goods or anything like that. We want you to have fresh fruits and vegetables to eat, meat, bakery items, breads, hot meals, whatever it is. If you've been to chemo all day and you don't feel like cooking, maybe you don't even want all the rest. You just need some fruit, some bread, and a hot meal to go home.
So I was always under the impression it was primarily for the homeless, but you're saying it's anybody who's in need. Like, do y'all have any like qualifying questions, or do you just take anybody that comes?
Well, we always say if you stand in the line for the hour and a half it takes to get the food, you must need it. And that's kind of the qualifying, whether it's hot, cold, whatever.
Yeah.
But 78% of the people that come to us have a full-time job.
Wow. Wow.
And 18% are struggling with a life-threatening illness, and 14% are veterans. So we have a mix. So you'll have some working homeless who just need a hot meal. They've worked all day. They don't really have a place to stay. They're couch surfing with friends, or they're living out of their car with their kids. And so our goal is just to meet that need, whatever that looks like.
Wow, that's incredible. So how do people support your organization? I know this isn't free. I mean, you're having to pay for the food or the diapers. How can people get behind this organization and help y'all out?
Well, you're right. Everything costs, right? And so some people may not have resources. They can give their time, or they can pray for us, or they can write notes of encouragement to some of the shut-ins that we deliver to. It varies, whatever they want to do. If they want to support financially, we would obviously love that. We merge the money together, and then we purchase what we can. We don't buy anything net tin. We don't buy anything on credit cards. What we've got is what we buy for that day. So sometimes on Mondays, it's Meatless Monday. We don't have meat. But, just like you use your budget, that's how we use ours. And we love that people give. And it doesn't matter how small, $5. If 5 people give $5, that's a pound of chicken. That's 750 10-pound bags of chicken. That's 750 families that go home with 10 pounds of chicken just because 5 people got together and gave $5. So it doesn't take a lot to make a huge difference in a family's life.
How do people sign up to give? Is there an easy way to do it?
Sure.
What is that?
They can go straight to our website, mymanahouse.com, because when you come, it's yours. And so they can go on there, give online one time. They can give recurring, however they want to do it. It's super easy to give online. If they're timid to give online, then they can write a check and mail it to our P.O. box, or they can come by and give it in person, however they'd like to do it.
Y'all are 501c3.
We are. We're a 501.
So it's tax deductible.
Yes, absolutely. 501c3 public charity. So if a company wants to make a contribution, that's tax deductible for them as well.
And you're not just looking for money, you also need volunteers.
We love volunteers.
It sounds like if you got that many people you're helping, obviously you can't do it alone.
No.
If somebody wants to just help out, a lending hand, how do they go about getting in with y'all?
It's super easy to volunteer with us. They just drop in. Anytime that we're open, drop in, stay, whatever fits their schedule. Some people come for 30 minutes. Some people stay an hour, 2 hours, whatever they need. If they're doing it for school, like National Honor Society or a sports team, just bring that piece of paper. We'll sign it gladly. If they need a letter on letterhead, they can email me and I'll write them a letter. We're there Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 1 to 6. Saturdays 10 to 1. We do ask if the parents are dropping them off, pick them up by 12:45 on Saturday so we can get to our other commitments.
Volunteers.
Yep, we do. And we're happy to have anybody come anytime that they're available. We love families. I have babies in Tulas and grandmothers who come with grandkids. It's a great way for your kids to see, hey, I really have a good life. And I can give, even if I'm a kid, I can give. And philanthropy starts at a really young age anyway, as you know. So it's good.
Well, Fran, I appreciate you being on. Thank you for all you've done for our community over the last, almost 30 years, it sounds like. If y'all have any interest in volunteering to support this organization or financially supporting them, you can go to their website and sign up to do that. Fran, thank you.
Thank you.
When the Siniard Law Show returns, we'll get to more of your legal questions, and we'll tell you how you can sign up for the Siniard Law Firm's free monthly newsletter.
I got sandwiched between an 18-wheeler and a truck. During the accident, I lost my left leg. I chose Siniard Law because my granddad knew they had a great reputation. They were very knowledgeable. They were very sweet. We had a connection. They pretty much treated us like family. I would definitely recommend Siniard Law because they are caring and they will help you get what you deserve. If you've been injured, call Siniard Law.
Welcome back to the Siniard Law Show. If you would like to sign up for Siniard Law's newsletter, which provides free monthly legal tips, scan the QR code and be sure to sign up at siniardlaw.com. Now let's get back to our viewers and your questions. We have an email from Cynthia. She says, my husband and I own 15 acres in the harvest area. Years ago, after buying the property, we built a 3-acre pond that we maintain for our grandchildren to fish in. About 10 years ago, after we built our home, a subdivision was developed on the property north of us. Now, our pond is more visible from the neighborhood. We share ownership of the pond with a neighbor who is concerned that the increased visibility may make the pond a, quote, attractive nuisance. He believes that if a child from the subdivision wandered onto our property and drowned, we could be held liable. He now wants us to build a fence along the property line, which would be expensive. What liability exposure do we have under Alabama law, and are we legally required to build a fence? That's an interesting vocabulary word.
This viewer's smart.
Nuisance.
They've done their research online. This takes us back to law school. Barnes, you want to give this a whirl?
I've been waiting for this question for a long time. Attractive nuisance.
Since the bar exam.
Never thought I'd run into it.
Yeah.
But this is a valid concern that's being raised by the neighbor. What an attractive nuisance is. First of all, as a property owner, if somebody trespasses onto your property, so they come there and they don't have a right to be there, in general, you don't owe them any duty to protect them. Now, you can't set traps for trespassers and things like that. But the law doesn't really place any duty on landowners to protect trespassers. There's an exception to that, though. And that exception applies if children come onto your property, and the reason that they come onto their property is because you've got something. It could be a pond, it could be a playground that you've built on your property, something that would be attractive to a child. And it could create liability if that child is playing on that playground equipment, or in this case, they go down to the pond, could create liability. But, I would say two things. First of all, in this instance, you're not legally required to build a fence. I don't think building a fence is a bad idea just for peace of mind. It may, if that's something that you're concerned about, just to protect people from coming onto your property, building a fence may not be a bad idea. But what the law says about open bodies of water is that if a child is old enough to wander onto your property, then they're old enough to appreciate the open and obvious risk of drowning in a body of water. Now, if there were a dangerous drain or an electrical line that went into the water that wouldn't be obvious for the child, that could create liability. The pond itself, probably not. So I would say you're not required to build the fence, except that if you would like to, I wouldn't tell you that's a bad idea, because it's going to give you peace of mind. And maybe if a claim was brought up, that added fact would give you some additional protection.
Right, you show that you went the extra mile because you were concerned about it.
Yeah, if it was me personally, I'd probably put up a sign or maybe a couple of signs that say no swimming, or sometimes you can find them with that like symbol, like instead of the no smoking symbol, it's the no swimming. So a kid could understand it. Take pictures of those signs, save those pictures. That's probably what I would do, so I can sleep at night, not have to worry about liability.
Because a fence at that size property is going to be really expensive.
You can get a couple of those signs at the Dollar General for $5 and just nail them up. That's probably what I'd do, and I think you're covered there. And then also look at your homeowner's insurance, because if something bad happened, a kid, 4-year-old, comes over there and drowns and dies. And I've handled a case like that before. It was a utility pond. And we made the attractive nuisance argument. It was the only time in my career I've ever had this issue come up. But what it was they had a lot of like machinery around the pond that I was arguing made this pond area particularly interesting to, I think the child was 4 at the time. And the fence was dilapidated. There was holes in the fence so the kid could get through. And we successfully made that argument. But if you're a homeowner, check your homeowner's insurance, compare it to your net worth. Look at the equity you have in your home. Look at your retirement. Stack all those things up if you haven't to determine what you're worth, and you need to have homeowners insurance coverage that is sufficient to protect that amount.
Yeah, and if something as horrific as a child wandering onto your property and drowning in your pond occurred, there's nothing stopping anyone from filing a lawsuit. That doesn't mean that they're going to be successful, but if something horrible like that happens, it's very likely that a claim does get filed. And that's when, you've got to have coverage, that's adequate to protect your assets, but that coverage is also there. That insurance company is there to defend you, to provide a defense for you, and make some of the arguments that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Really interesting. I think we all need to call our insurance companies. All right, let's read an email now from Jesus. He says, can the city be sued for a negligently maintained sidewalk? If I wrote a letter to the city about the broken down sidewalk outside my business that one of my customers nearly tripped over, would that make them responsible if someone did get hurt and they still haven't fixed it? Does the city have immunity?
Yes, yes, and yes. I'll take this one, and you can cover anything I miss. Can the city be sued for negligently maintained sidewalk? Yes, I've got a case that's going on right now like that. If he wrote a letter to the city about the broken sidewalk, could that help somebody who trips over it in the future? Yes. One of the things you have to prove in that type of claim is that the city knew or should have known of this dangerous sidewalk. So you got to find that proof. You don't necessarily have to prove they actually knew about it, but you got to prove they should have known about it through, safety sweeps or fall risk studies or whatever, and a lot of cities do that. They do annual or semi-annual inspections of their sidewalks to determine whether something needs to be repaired. Usually you can prove that they knew or should have known. And then the last part of his question was, does the city have immunity? They have partial immunity. So they have immunity from two things. You cannot sue them for punitive damages. You can get compensatory damages, and that's things like medical bills, loss of income, pain, mental anguish, but you cannot get money to punish the city. The other thing they have immunity from, it's really a cap, is the most you can sue a city for, in the state of Alabama at least, is $100,000. Their liability is capped. And sometimes that's not near enough for the level of injuries. And that could be a city dump truck that runs over somebody, or, there's terrible things where the city's responsible, but there's this cap in play. And there's some creative ways to get around that, and we don't have near enough time in the show because that's kind of a whole law school class. But just know that cap will be an issue. The other thing people need to be aware of is that you have to file a notice of claim. It's a written document with the city's clerk's office within 6 months of the date of the injury. If you don't file that, it acts as kind of like a statute of limitations. You got to file a written notice of claim with the city within 6 months.
Okay, very good.
That 6 months will fly by a lot faster than you realize, and you need to act immediately.
All right. Thank you so much, Bart Siniard and Barnes Hayward from Siniard Law, for all this information about premises liability. And we look forward to hearing from you, our viewers, with your questions about any legal topic. You can email us at questions@siniardlaw.com or call our voicemail line at 844-7000-LAW. Join us next Sunday night after the late news. Good night.
The preceding was a paid presentation by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys, paid for by Siniard Law Injury Attorneys.